All right, I have with me today Todd Wright, which I'm proud to call my pastor, with us today. So thank you for joining us, Todd.
Hey, great to be with you, Dan.
This is our first interview that is not one of our artists or one of our programmers. This is the first book author interview that we are doing. But I felt like, Pastor, what you had to say in this book fits our core values of our network, and that is we address real world issues from a biblical worldview in our
Mhm.
music and our programs, and I felt like your book just really hit that very clearly and just deal with real issues. So yes, hunting legacy, forging meaning from the midlife and manhood. Great book to have. So let's just kind of jump into it a little bit. Tell us a little bit about kind of your background and kind of what brought you to this point of maybe putting this book together.
It really began when I was standing beside my father's deathbed. I was age 48. I'm now 60, almost 61 in another month. And I was standing there at age 48. My father was dying. I buried him 2 weeks later. But I had been on that treadmill of manhood, of just accomplishment and work, and in my case, ministry of a growing church. I had great purpose. I had invested my life in kingdom work, but was very disillusioned about a lot of things in life at that as I began to evaluate. And my dad looked up at me from his deathbed and said, "Son, if there's anything you really want to do, anything you dream about, go home, write it on your calendar, save your money, and go do it." Because just yesterday, I was a teenager. And I buried my dad 2 weeks later, did his funeral service, and I couldn't get that statement out of my head. And over the next year, it really took me a while just battling the grief. He was such a powerful influence in my life and a godly man, served as a deacon in the local church, a Sunday school teacher, all of those offices, and just excelled as an encourager to pastors and serving alongside. And so I went home and began to just think through my life. And uh, actually, I'd stopped dreaming and didn't realize I had stopped dreaming. I was just on a runaway treadmill, running as fast as I could and seemingly in one spot. But I wrote down a list, and my dad had owned a gun store growing up as a boy, for me as a boy. And I remember those guys coming in and hunting and hearing those stories about hunts. And I had a lot of dreams in my heart that I'd never gotten around to doing. And so I wrote a list of things I really wanted to do. And one was caribou hunt, moose hunt, bear hunt, elk hunt, just a few basics of the North American big game. And over 12 years, I went out and did those hunts and had a great time doing it. And just the ability to dream again, get off that treadmill, gave me fresh perspective, actually made me a better pastor, made me a better husband, made me a better man. And so that's sort of the crux of it. The book is divided into three phases. The first phase is my actual journey and what I feel like got out of line in my life that brought about that disillusionment, even as a pastor and as a committed Christian. And it made me evaluate manhood and what really makes a man tick and fulfilled on the inside. And I think so often we miss this and are given so many mixed messages. So, in the first section of the book, it's through my journey, but I look at ways that I feel like I got astray. Nothing immoral, but just not fulfilled and a very miserable person and bitter at times, even while trying to lead a local church. And the second phase of the book is the hunts. I take the reader on the hunts themselves in real time, in first person real time. And then the final section of the book is practical helps to help every man get back on track. If they've created a mess, which sometimes we men do, helps them clean up that mess. Sometimes apologizing, sometimes dealing with hurts and wounds and scars, so that we can finish well in this life. And so that's really what the book is all about and how it came about. And it's been one of the greatest pleasures to go through that journey. It took me 3 years to write the book. And I didn't start out to on that journey to write a book. I just started out trying to have a better, more happy life.
That's good. Yeah, that first section is titled Midlife chronicles. Most of the time we think of midlife crisis, type thing, but that midlife chronicles. So you mentioned the fact of just kind of putting some things together to, where you'd kind of got off track a little bit. And I can relate to that. We get so involved in ministry and different things that there are things that we miss. So what were some of those things that you just kind of, that realization that you needed to kind of make those adjustments to?
One was, even in ministry, just work, 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 work. And we think because it's ministry and for the church, for the kingdom of God, that's a good thing. But there's just more to life than just work and personal, professional accomplishments. And our church was a very fast growing church. In my 40s, our church quadrupled in size. We had grown from 200 in attendance to over 800 in attendance. Today, almost 3,000 in attendance. So, there were a lot of stresses that went along with that. But another one was debt and misunderstanding. I'm not one who says, never borrow. We all probably are and will at some point in our life, and we owe a lot of tangible debts in our lives before we are able to pay them. But it was easy as signing on a dotted line. And I at one point had over $1 million of personal debt, and it got so overwhelming between the debt there and in the local church that I just carried that all the time. I think another too is just, does my life really matter? Sometimes I've always said there's really three things that a man needs to survive and function well. And one is purpose. We have to have purpose. Well, I had purpose in the local church and in the kingdom of God, and was leading people to Christ. But living purposefully, I think sometimes we need purposeful pursuits.
Yeah.
And I add the word pursuit because we need that something, that pull into what's next. And there comes a point, if we're doing the same routine, we lose that sense. Even though we may be living a life of purpose, we're no longer pursuing as an action. And then a second thing is money. We have to have money to take care of our families, to take care of ourselves and our futures. And then the third thing is community. So those are basics in everyday function. But to go a layer deeper, I believe God created us. I think it's John Eldridge who wrote the book Wild at Heart many years ago. And he gives the three basic emotional needs or pursuits of a man. And one of those is a battle to fight, a princess to rescue, and an adventure to live.
Go on.
And that adventure part had been gone from my life for so long. I had a gorgeous wife and beautiful. We've been married now almost 43 years. We're middle school sweethearts. So, and neither of us have ever strayed. We've stayed devoted to each other through all these years. And that's been awesome. And I had plenty of battles to fight in the local church, of course, and then the kingdom fight against evil. But personally, man, I miss those adventures, and I didn't realize how important they were. I thought if I was just, serving God in the local church, it would all take care of itself. And to be honest with you, it made me not feel fulfilled. And I didn't realize how powerful just going on an adventure can be for a man.
I appreciate that. That is so true. I think so many times in ministry, and one of the things we try to help with in our ministry and our message that we have that we're trying to get our audience to listen to is, God gave us a wonderful creation to enjoy.
Yep.
We get so many wrapped up into, and I'm all for. I'm excited about what God has for us for eternity, but He didn't mean for us to just not appreciate His creation and all the things that are here in such a way in which, I can just drudge through this life and I'll get to the other side. That was not God's plan at all. And you're right. I think He has put in us that desire to do those things. And so obviously that really played out, I think, in the next section, the new season of hunting adventures. Tell us about that. Obviously, your dad had a gun shop growing up, so I imagine you were around some of those things. So tell us about that and what just kind of drove you to those things, and there's kind of some of the stories maybe behind that.
Yeah, it really started as a boy. I worked in his gun store. I was running a cash register by the time I was 8 years of age. And, it was an exciting time because these men would come in. All of them were rustic. It was a men's store. All of them were sometimes a little crude.
Yeah.
They had their stories to tell, and you almost knew they were lying about some of it.
Oh yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, as a kid, I'm sitting there soaking up these stories, and it's amazing how it left an imprint inside of me to go and live out some of those things. And um, and then I was called into ministry, and then for many many years, just because of time and priority, my guns were sitting in a safe, and I didn't hunt at all. And so once I started back, it all sort of happened organically after making that list. And to sort of catch up, I was getting ready to do some of that list. Then a year after my dad died, 10 months after my dad died, my mom found out she had brain cancer. So when I talk about midlife, it's a lot of the battles, sometimes just natural seasons of life. It's
Yeah.
hard. We lose our parents. So my mom got brain cancer. She passed away, and walked her through that journey. And then I became more disillusioned. So it took me a year or two to actually get out there and hunt. I was out in the pasture one day. We had a farm raising cattle, and I get a phone call. I'm thinking it's somebody needing something bad, some tragedies happen. It's a guy in our church who invited me to hunt with his family down in Albany, Georgia, and it was an invitation that I hadn't had in a long time. And it's like, man, this feels so good and so right. And so it was Thanksgiving week. I went down with him and his family, just had a blast. And it was the start of getting back out there in God's creation and living out some of those dreams. And then one after another, God just put me in place with different people who were going on different trips or could help me fulfill some of those dreams. And so after 12 years, I was able to go on all of those. I've been to Alaska now. Next month, I'll be in Alaska for the ninth time in the last 8 years. It just keeps calling me back there. And my wife and I are going this time and doing some ministry there, plus some fishing. So we try to plan some of those things in now. But it's so fulfilling. When I carried out the last hunt, which was a year ago this month, as a matter of fact, in May, and it was a black bear hunt on Vancouver Island.
Mm.
Just really special to seal that list of all those dreams. And what it really taught me, Dan, is that many of the best things in life don't just automatically happen.
Yeah.
They just don't. Now, there are great things that God just pours into our life, no doubt. But He gave us the ability to dream. He gave us the drive to live intentionally and to dream about and plan and save. And the advice that my father gave me to write down those dreams, put them on the calendar, save my money, and go do them, what he was really saying in his own simple way is to live intentionally.
Yeah.
Don't wait for great things to happen in your life. Help plan them and lean towards them, save toward them. So that's what I gathered from those different hunts, and had some great adventures in between. So yeah,
Well, I appreciate that, especially the fact that you kind of understood what your dad was trying to tell you, and I appreciate that, and I too I've lost my dad and my mom as well, but those things that if you will, those last little advice, those last things as they begin to tell them to
sure.
you, you just really start sitting there going, okay, they're sharing a legacy. I look back both with my dad and my grandfather, and the legacy that they put before me really did begin to challenge me at that point when I'm realizing they're gone. Now it's on me.
Yeah.
I think that really fits really well going into that last section, hunting for a better legacy. What are some
Mhm.
things that as you're now handing them out to that next generation? What are some of the things that you found that you feel like, hey, this is an important message to get out?
I think one is, Dan, that we live in seasons. Life is not just from birth to death. for many years, I've said, you have that dash in the middle, that little short dash between the two numbers, your birth date and death date. It's really more than that. God designed the world and universe to be lived out in seasons, with in spring, summer, fall, and winter, and so forth. But even in our life as men, we have different seasons. And the message I would want, one of the key messages is to pass on the next generation, is to realize what season you're in and live wisely in that season. Sometimes I watch people who really resist admitting that they're in the midlife years, and they want to still keep acting like teenagers in the midlife years.
I think our body tells us a little bit more not to do
you
that. But
know,
anyway,
uh, it,
yeah.
winter and summer just
Yeah.
aren't the same.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
you dress and act and carry out your life in the winter the same as you do the summer, people are going to look at you and say you're just a fool, because God designed the
Yeah.
world we lived in those seasons. So we have our young life, midlife, and our old life. And I identify midlife as age 35 to 60.
Mm.
Many people don't, they only think maybe 45, but it's really 35 to 60. And during those years, we really have become masters of certain things, and we have to learn how to hone our skills in that season, so that when we reach 60 and beyond, we can really invest in the next generation. So I see this next season that I'm in as a season to invest in the younger generation. That is what life is. That is what success is all about. Is how can I pass it on? It's not about a stone monument with our name on it someday, or a facial depiction, but how can we invest in the next generation? I think if I had four things really that last season of life should center around to pass on, it would be to live with intention in the next season, whatever season you're in, to live with intention. Secondly, it would be to stay alert. I'm always reminded of scripture where the apostle Peter reminds us, you be vigilant, be alert, because your adversary, the devil, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he might devour. Keeping your eyes wide open, all around you, with your family, with your kids, grandkids, bad influences, bad habits, all those kinds of things. Just stay alert of your life. Be aware of your own journey. So the third is be wise. Scripture identifies what wisdom is. And we have an entire book called section called the Books of Wisdom. And of course, Proverbs is center of that. And there's so much there, and warnings about just, excuse the phrase, but just don't be stupid. Uh,
Yeah.
and I love that Proverbs was written from a father to a son. My son, listen to your father. My son, listen to your father. My son, listen to your father, over and over again. Don't ignore the advice of your father. And then it goes into a dissertation of wisdom. I love how that's put together. So live with wisdom. And I actually give key areas, 5 key areas of which to gain wisdom. If you feel like don't have wisdom, or you keep making foolish decisions, how can you gain wisdom? And I list out those 5. And then the final thing is to be bold. We lose our sense of boldness through failures in our life. We get afraid to stick our neck out again, or to speak up again, or to step forward again. And any failure that we have experienced seems to haunt us in the future. Can be many, many years ahead, but it holds us back. And so I talk about this, the essential characteristic of boldness as a man. We say that's a man of courage. And that doesn't mean a man without fear, but it means a man willing to fight through his fears to do what's right, to do what's necessary, to do what's needed for a better life. And I face that fear every time I've had to apologize to somebody for a dumb comment that I may have made, or have offended somebody in some way. Going before God, if I've done something wrong in my life, there's that sense of fear and angst. Yet we go forth. He says, come before the throne of grace boldly. And he knows he has to say that because he knows we're going to shrink back in fear.
True, not to, yeah, we don't want to know boldly. What does that look like? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's a common battle for all men. So this book to me really gives a storyline. We learn a lot through stories, and one of the goals of the book was to help men know that they're not alone in their journey. I don't believe that my journey is exceptional. I believe it's very, very normal. just a few different sentences here and there that defines the story, but the challenges are the same, and I believe the answers are the same.
Well, I appreciate that, and I've had a chance to go through the book here in just the last number of days, and the idea that you're able to tell this story from the youngest age as you get to that midlife and get to where you are now, where I believe you're right. We're at that point in our age or our life that we can now look at that legacy feeding back into that next generation. And I really think the key with that I think I will say that it unfortunately is extraordinary for you to be in this position is because there has to be a consistency over a lifespan to be
Mhm.
able to have that kind of impact
To
back
have
to
that
the next
voice. Yeah.
that voice. There's so many that have quit along the ways, and
Mhm.
it didn't say fail. We all fail. We all make those mistakes. It's quitting,
They just get
and
tired and quit. Yeah,
they
it's
just
weary.
quit. And I feel like that having that ability to be able to say, look, I went through the battles. I did
Sure.
fail. I did make the mistakes, but now I want to feed back into you. And one of the things that I felt like that I saw in the book is that encouragement for them when they hit those to not quit,
Yes.
because we need another generation. As much as I'd love to say that, we're going to be around for another 40 years to do this, chances are we're not,
You're right.
because I'm right where you are in the
Yep.
age. We're not. So who are we pulling along with us to be able to take that role? And I feel like the book really lays that out in such a way that those that read it um, can take those things, saying, I can keep doing this. I can keep serving. I don't need to quit. And when I make a mistake, here's what I'm doing. So again, hunting legacy, forging meaning from midlife to manhood. Where can someone get that book from you?
If they want a hard copy, a signed hard copy, they can go to toddwright.com. That's toddwright.com or huntinglegacy.com. Either will work. And I will sign and mail you one. It's also available on Amazon in electronic through Kindle and paperback. And in about 2 weeks, by the end of the month of May, the audio will be available on Audible and I think Spotify and a few of those. So that book, that the audio will, I think, help a lot of men because some men, oh, I'm just not a reader. But so
Yeah,
maybe you can get it and listen to it.
absolutely. I appreciate that. In fact, we're in the process of taking all of our materials and getting in the audio as well because we're finding that is a key component. So, well, thank you for taking some time to be with us today. Thank you for just holding with what God gave you and now sharing back with the rest of us. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great to be with you and your audience.
Thanks, Todd.